and welcome to the next lesson in the story Play, Lewis, Play. Today we're looking at point of view. Who is telling the story? We're finding the narrator. The narrator can be first person, second person, or third person. Generally, stories are told from a first person or third person point of view. Today we're going to see how we can differentiate between the first and third person point of view. A first person narrator is part of the story, often the main character, and uses the pronouns I or me, we or us. When a story is told from the narrator's first person perspective, readers learn only what that narrator sees, thinks, or feels. That's called a limited point of view. A third person narrator is a supporting character or someone outside of the story who uses pronouns like he, she, or they. A third person narrator can be limited and only able to reveal the thoughts and feelings of a single character, or they can be omniscient, which means all knowing. An omniscient narrator is able to reveal the thoughts and feelings of many characters, as well as things the characters might not even know. Readers can usually determine point of view at the beginning of a story when the author introduces the narrator. This is definitely true in Play, Lewis, Play. So a biography is usually told from a third person point of view. However, in a fictionalized biography, the author may invent a narrator. This narrator could be the subject of the biography or a different character. Therefore, a fictionalized biography can be told from a first person point of view. So, in the story Play, Lewis, Play, in the very first paragraph, we will review where the author introduces the narrator. At the bottom of the paragraph, in paragraph 1, it says, Armstrong's story is one of talent, passion, and commitment. And who better to tell it than his truest companion, his very own trumpet? So, right in the very first paragraph, it introduces the narrator, the trumpet. So, remember, a fictionalized biography can be told from a first person point of view because the author may invent a narrator. So, that's what this author seems to have done. So, let's look and see if we can find more evidence to support this. So today we're going to pick up on page 50. If you did not read the previous or watch the previous lesson, please go back and do so you have a true understanding of the story so far. We're going to pick up on page 50, and I will read through the section, and I would like you to look and see if you can tell whether it is a first person or third person point of view. Lewis didn't want to lose Joe. He was family to Lewis, really more like a father than anyone else had been. Lewis listened, but he didn't say anything about being willing to move to Chicago or any other place. Then Joe did something that made little Lewis cry. Lewis, he said, your talent is so special that every musician wants to imitate your style. There's no one like you. Your horn's full of miracles. So I'm giving you a present. It's my cornet. It's time I bought me a new one. Now take my cornet, little brother. Lewis hugged his hero, and his eyes grew watery. Then Lewis did something that surprised me and Joe. Lewis kissed me, the old hock shop horn, and said, no one was more reliable, more dependable than you. You helped me play my kind of music. You're part of me, so I can't leave you. When I'm out on the stage playing Joe's horn, you'll be waiting for me in my dressing room. Where I go, you go. So already in one of these paragraphs, we've seen something to let us know. You may notice it does use the reference of he as the horn is talking about Louis and Joe. However, if you look very carefully in paragraph 20 and 21, he uses a word that can only be used for a first person point of view. It says in paragraph 20, Louis hugged his hero and his eyes grew watery. Then Louis did something that surprised me and Joe. That word me is showing that the point of view is from a first person narrator. There are other examples of this. Louis kissed me, the old hockshop horn, is another phrase that shows he's talking about the narrator in the first person. Let's keep reading and keep looking. And that's how Louis rose to fame, and I went with him. It wasn't long before Joe Oliver, now called King Oliver, left for Chicago. And it wasn't long after that when he called Louis from Chicago and said, "Come on up, I need you here." Louis, who had never left New Orleans, was nervous about going so far. He didn't count the river boats because they were a short distance away. But when Joe Oliver called, Louis had to go. He heard Chicago was cold with a big wind blowing in from the huge lake and the wide sky over Lake Michigan. So Louis bought the longest, warmest underwear he could find. Then, with a trout sandwich wrapped in a brown paper bag, his underwear folded in another one, and Joe Oliver's cornet under his arm, he boarded the train for Chicago, the Windy City. Of course, I was there too. Another phrase. I hope you noticed the pronoun that was used. Wow, was he a success! He performed for overflowing crowds, playing his heart out. Every city, every country, every continent wanted him. He was like an eagle soaring toward the sky, into the height of fame. He never slowed down and never stopped playing. That's the story, the true story of how Louis Armstrong, or Louis Armstrong, the great Satchmo, became the world's greatest horn player. Jazz poured from his soul like a river. He loved sharing that music. He loved sharing the music that haunted his heart, that bounced around in his head. When he picked me up to play a solo, I was so proud. I felt there wasn't a cornet around as happy as I was, and there wasn't a horn player as happy as Louis. He sure loved his music, and he loved the world. And the wonderful thing was, the world loved him back. So I hope you enjoyed the story of Play, Louis Play. And now go on to the Nearpod lesson and continue proving whether the story was written from the first or the third person point of view.